Hey everybody, what's going on? I'm Fabian Calvo, founder and president of the real estate investment firm, The Node House, and creator of the Resourceful Real Estate Academy. And I wanted to do a video where I address the top 10 questions that I received from so many of you. The questions have been pouring in either from our Facebook account that you message me or just email me, Fabian at resourcefulrealestateacademy.com. I personally respond to every single question and Facebook post as well. And your questions are really good because whether you're somebody who's been investing in real estate for some time or you're a beginner, as markets change, the market in real estate today is fundamentally different than it was 5 years ago. And so, you want to be on the front lines of just basically what those changes are and how they, what kind of impact they have on your investment career. So as someone who is on the front lines of the real estate market every single day, I think this will be helpful whether you have invested in the program or whether you're just interested overall in the free video content that I put out. So the first one is, I'm a beginner and I don't know anything about real estate investing. Can I make money in the course? Can I, if I purchase your course, is it only for people that have experience? And the answer is it's for anyone, really. I mean, if you're a beginner, like when I started, I was a beginner and I was totally clueless about real estate. I had, my father had invested a little bit in real estate. He had dabbled in real estate and I grew up like, painting homes or fixing up properties, but I really didn't know the fundamentals of how people made money in it, or I didn't really know anything about it. But I did know that a lot of his friends, my father's friends, and a lot of people that were wealthy that I knew of were real estate investors or they own real estate. So I knew, okay, well, I certainly don't want a 9 to 5. I want to do something that, I could be my own boss, create my own hours, not have a cap on my ceiling. So I decided I'm going to dive into real estate investing. And I started by getting my real estate license and just immersing myself into everything I could get my hands on. I mean, I literally spent every penny that I had, thousands of dollars at the time, in real estate courses, real estate investing programs. And so to answer your question, and so I put all that material into this course. So to answer your question, it's like anything you start with. When we learned to ride a bike, we fell a bunch of times. We didn't know what we were doing. But it's not like when we fell the first time, we're like, oh, I give up. No, it was a process. And if you commit yourself to anything, you eventually learn. And, I'm a big believer in modeling. So what I think is so great about this course, and it was so great about just my interaction with you, is that you can model me, who has been investing in real estate for 10 years, and I tell you, here's where I've done things that really sucked. Here's where I've done things where I, lost money, the trials and the struggles that I personally went through, and you could avoid those yourself. I wish I had that, that blueprint because when I started, it was more about, the material that I got was more about strategy. Like, here's what you do, right? But it wasn't somebody that personally said, look, here's what I've done, here's where I failed, here's where I screwed up, here's what's worked for me. And I think that's what separates this course from others. But moving along, here's one that I get a lot. And the question is, I live in California, or I live in New York, or I'm in South Florida, and real estate deals are hard to come by. There's too many big institutional investors buying, or whatever it may be. And that's just fundamentally not true. In South Florida, I've done a bunch of real estate deals in the market where, and those deals have been multifamily deals or apartment buildings. And that's a market where supposedly the inventory is running dry. And that's the narrative a lot of people say, is that inventory is running dry, so that means that I can't find deals. Well, there's specific strategies and tactics that if you use and deploy those tactics in any market, up, down, a market that's going crazy, a market that's doing awful, a market that's collapsing, whatever it may be, those strategies lead to finding great deals. I cover those in the course, but California or New York or Florida, there's still a tremendous amount of toxic properties, toxic debt. Yes, a lot of prices have returned to pre-bubble pricing, but again, it's like overall, there's always somebody buying and selling real estate. It's something that's constant. People are moving, people have external situations. And when you learn how to look for those different types of situations, when you learn how to, deal with different types of either hedge funds or banks or whatever it may be, you're able to just build a funnel of always finding those types of deals. So it doesn't matter where you live, because real estate deals are everywhere. And, if you live in a particular city or whatever, in any given market, there's always certain things. There's always at least half a dozen best buyers, investors, people you can partner with. There's always a multitude of deals. So I look at it as the bigger the city, let's say it's LA, Southern California, the bigger the area, the more opportunity there is. And that's how you have to look at it as well. So it's not a limiting factor. It's actually a good thing for you. Here's another one that I get a lot because, as you know, my program deals a lot with, it encompasses everything about real estate investing, but it deals a lot with the trillions of dollars in toxic debt, toxic properties that are sitting on bank balance sheets. And, when I tell people, hey, go talk to your banks, in the list that I give out in my in the confidential black disc of over 1,000 FDIC banks that have assets that they need to sell, they've been mandated by the federal government to sell those off. People are like, look, the bank's not going to talk to me. Or I'll get emails from people that have bought the course and they're like, I called a couple banks and they told me they wouldn't give up that information. So let me break this down here. First off, for those of you that have called and haven't had, you called a few people and they turned you down. Keep in mind that first off, most of the people that pick up the phone, we'll call them the gatekeeper, they're typically clueless about the fact that they work for a bank that has a bunch of toxic debt or that has an agreement with the FDIC that they have to sell those assets. In fact, many of these banks just don't even have the leadership in place or a plan in place to sell these assets. So it's like anything in sales. You need to continue to follow up. You need to continue to make the calls. I can tell you in my personal investing career, I've had to make multiple calls to the same bank or the same servicing company. And finally, they took me serious. It was like, okay, this person is, they keep calling. They're somebody who's real. They're not just, trying to call and get a list of foreclosures or whatever. They're wanting to build a relationship and they're positioning themselves as someone that could help become an asset. And that's the important thing. Now, whether you buy the course or not, just know banks in America today and banks really in the Western world have a tremendous amount of toxic debt. Those banks need to sell this debt. They need to sell the debt or the properties. And they're looking to build strategic relationships with people that can help them do that. And that's how you position yourself. You're a problem solver, not just for them, but for the owner in foreclosure or just the seller you're dealing with, the buyer the best buyer you're working with. So banks will talk to you, but it's like anything. You're not gonna, although it's happened to me, the first time you call, it's not like they're gonna be like, oh my God, hallelujah, you called, here's my list, let's, please sell them all for me. That's not gonna happen. You're gonna need to keep calling, build a rapport, and like anything in sales, you might have to make 5 calls, 10 calls to get that 1 or 2 that said, okay, yes, I'm sending you. Now I've had people, I'm gonna skip around here, but this kind of leads me to my next point. I've had people who've invested in the course, or people that are investors in Canada, Australia, Japan, New York. I have a student in Australia that already calling from Australia, a completely different time zone, they're like a day ahead of us, has already gotten lists of REOs from dealing with banks. And, so yes, it's possible. Yes, I do it, so I know it's possible. Which leads me to what happens if you live in Canada, UK, Australia, whatever, Japan, China, because people from literally all over the world have bought the program, have invested in the program. The truth is that my personal opinion is that if you live in any of those countries, I think you have a leg up. I think it actually gives you an advantage, and I'll tell you why. Foreign buyers of U.S. real estate they're at record levels. The Chinese, the Russians, Canadians, people in the UK, they make up the top 5 buyers in the country. And if you're from those countries, you have a much better, I think you just from the whole angle of perception is reality, it's a plus for you, right? Because you're calling and you can say, well, look, I have a company in the UK or in Canada. We're looking to buy assets in Florida or in California. I think it's instant credibility. And I think it helps you in that whole perception is reality, regardless of whether it's just you and your company or it's you and a group of buyers or investors that you've put together. So the program works for anywhere. Remember, the great thing about this market is that it's a virtual market, meaning that, and that's what I meant from the beginning of this video, that the market's fundamentally changed in 5 years. 5 years ago, it was more like, okay, well, I invest in just my geographic area. Today, I invest in couple dozen different markets, and I never see the properties that I buy, never see them physically. I see them online because there's so many tools online today. It's a virtual market that allows you or anyone to invest literally from anywhere in the world. Again, my example is you could be in Antarctica and you could be investing in real estate anywhere. And not only do I do this, but I know of people, in fact, some of the most successful real estate investors I know are investing in markets in the US and they're outside of the US. And they use that to their advantage. So moving down the line, here's a big one. And I think this has a lot to do with programming that we've received. It has a lot to do with the notion of and I just heard this the other day. I was walking into a restaurant and I heard two guys talking, and one of the guys says, well, the old adage, you need money to make money. It's just not true. I mean, that might be true for some businesses, but when I started, I had no money. I mean, I was literally broke, had credit card debt, and I had not a penny to my name. And that's why what interested me most about real estate investing was the fact that I could start investing with no money out of pocket. Now, when I mean you could invest with no money, that means you invest with no money out of your pocket. My program goes into how to structure partnerships. In fact, I'll be producing just another free video that I'll be sending out about partnerships and about how to, basically put together pitches for investors and work all that stuff out. But real estate is the only asset class that I know where you can start without a penny out of pocket. You can start investing without a penny out of pocket. And there's multiple strategies that I use every day, and that I not only use by me, but they're used by countless other investors. They've been proven to work. I've proven them to work, that allow you to put deals together, whether it's assigning contracts, simultaneous close, flipping contracts, double closings. The list really goes on, that allow you to just be someone who has all this specialized knowledge about a market, about the real estate market, and allows you to use that specialized knowledge to your advantage in putting deals together. So putting together deals with no money out of your own pocket is it's not like it's a gimmick or it's too good to be true. It's something that I do. I do every single day. So I'm confident if I can do this, anyone else can do this as well. So moving on. Do you need a license? Do I need a property manager? I get that question a lot. You don't need a real estate license because you're acting as a principal, right? So it's not like you're acting as a real estate agent where you need a real estate license. You're acting as the main investor principal. So you're actually the one who's buying and selling the property. So for that, you don't need a real estate license. And if you end up buying properties and partnering with investors and you manage them, you don't need a property management license because you're the owner and you're managing your own properties. I've managed thousands of rental units in the past. And I'm not even advocating being a long-term property manager because I think you expose yourself to the whims of the market. Although I have properties that I own long-term, I do manage them. There are a select few in my portfolio. I'm personally more an advocate, at least in this time in the market, to get in and out of deals, sometimes getting in and out of deals in 24 hours, which really just means that you can be working on this from your home computer and you don't need to be someone with boots on the ground investing or boots on the ground running a property management company. Now, the last couple that I have, which I think are some of the most important. The last one, I'll save one of the most important ones for the last one. But the second to last is, how long does this take? I understand many people that are interested in the course or interested in just becoming investors, you have a day job. And, I'm sorry for you, but, I had a day job too when I started. And it's just a reality, right? And what I mean that I'm sorry for you is because we're entering, I think, this paradigm of this new economy where entrepreneurs will rule their own economy. Unless you're an entrepreneur, unless you have your own business in whatever it may be, it's going to be tough because if you work for someone else constantly, your wages will be eaten in inflation, and there's a lot of different factors that won't allow you. So I always think that becoming an entrepreneur is the best thing. I like real estate entrepreneur because, again, the cost to entry, what it takes for you to get started, is next to nothing. Now, I really think that you can start with just a few hours a day. If you spend an hour in the morning following the program, following the steps, or if you don't invest in the program and you just want to learn yourself, a lot of the free content that I send out gives you the steps of what you need to do. An hour in the morning, an hour in the afternoon, much of this can be done via email, and then on the weekend, spending a few hours, I think is enough for you to get started, where in the next 30 to 60 days, you could close your first real estate deal. So I think that's totally possible. And the goal, of course, is to go from a couple days, a couple hours a day or an hour a day, to eventually quitting your day job and making this a full-time career, which has been my full-time career. I mean, I haven't had a job since I was 18 years old, or maybe actually since I was 20 years old. I'm 35 now, so I haven't had a job in about 15 years. I've been investing in real estate for that long now, and that's my job. That's what I do. That's what I live off. That's what gives me the freedom to travel around, to basically live in a great property, to have nice cars. And that's the kind of lifestyle that I want for you as well. Now, the last question that I get a lot, because many of you have watched my pump and dump micro documentary, which is about how the market's being pumped up right now. What happens if there is another real estate crash? Well, again, I personally love real estate crashes. I think they're one of the greatest things ever. Now, in the last big crash, I struggled tremendously. But I was looking at it in a whole different paradigm. Now I understand because, unlike most real estate investors, I now know the economic trends and what to look out for, which most real estate investors do not know. That's why most real estate investors end up losing money, is that knowing these trends, knowing a little bit about the economy, allow you to separate yourself from the average investor. And you understand that the principles that you use, the principles you learn in the course, the principles of investing with no money, they work in any market. They work in markets that are booming. They work in markets that are collapsing, where nobody wants real estate. In fact, the markets where no one wants real estate, like it was a few years ago, those are the best markets, because again, in real estate, anything is negotiable. So when you have a situation where the market's really crappy, people are desperate to sell, that's where you want to come in and really be that problem solver. And I think that's one of the best opportunities we have. Those opportunities don't come along all the time. But when they do come along, you want to be ready to jump on them, right? So these principles work in any market. And I think that's what you'll learn when you invest in the course and you go through it. You'll realize that. Now, again, I want to be totally clear and let you know again and stress to you, I'm here to support you 110% along the way. So any questions you have, email me, Fabian@resourcefulrealestateacademy.com, or just post on our Facebook page. I'm Fabian Calvo. Until we meet again, go out there and become a Resourceful Real Estate Academy investor and add some value to the marketplace, and the market will reward you tremendously. Thanks for watching. I'm out.